an unexpected shelter. The address on the card led Mira to a neighborhood she'd only ever passed through on buses. Tree-lined streets where old money whispered through wrought iron gates and manicured hedges. Celeste's estate sat behind stone walls softened by climbing roses. The kind of place that appeared in architectural magazines under titles like Historic Elegance Meets Modern Vision. Mira almost turned back 3 times before finally pressing the intercom button. "Mira," Celeste's voice came through, warm with recognition. "Come in, please. I'm so glad you came." The gate swung open silently, and Mira walked up a path lined with lavender. The main house was beautiful in an understated way. Cream stone, tall windows, a blue door that looked hand-painted. Before she could knock, it opened. Celeste stood barefoot in linen pants and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back loosely. She looked different from the polished woman at the gallery, more real somehow, more approachable. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Celeste admitted, stepping aside to let Mira enter. "I almost didn't," Mira confessed, taking in the entrance hall with its warm wooden floors and art-covered walls. Every piece looked carefully chosen, loved rather than merely displayed. "I'm glad your curiosity won." Celeste led her through to a sunlit room that served as both library and sitting area. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls, while the others held paintings. Some Mira recognized as famous, others clearly by unknown artists. Tea? Coffee? Something stronger. Tea would be lovely. They settled into comfortable chairs near windows overlooking a private garden. As Celeste poured from a delicate pot, Mira noticed her hands. Strong, capable, with traces of paint under the nails despite their elegant appearance. "You paint," Mira observed. Celeste smiled. "Badly, but yes. It helps me understand what I'm looking at when I evaluate art. My mother was the real artist in the family. She taught me to see. She also taught me that the people who truly love you don't diminish your light. They stand in it with you." The words hung in the air between them, pointed, but not unkind. "Last night wasn't the first time," Mira said quietly, surprising herself with the admission. "He's been doing it for years. Small comments, little corrections. I told myself he was just being practical, that he wanted me to be realistic about my chances." "And what do you think now?" Mira met Celeste's gaze. "I think he wanted me small enough to control." "Yes." Celeste set down her cup. "I had someone like that once. A woman who told me my ambitions were unbecoming, that I should be grateful for the life my family's money provided and stop trying to prove myself in the art world. She said I was playing at business, that real gallerists would never take me seriously. What did you do?" "I proved her wrong. Built my foundation, established 3 galleries across Europe, and watched her marry someone else while telling mutual friends I'd been too intense for her." Celeste's smile turned wry. "It hurt terribly at the time. Now I'm grateful. She taught me that some people love the idea of you, not the reality of who you are." Mira absorbed this, seeing her own experience reflected in Celeste's words. "Your paintings at the gallery last night," Celeste continued, leaning forward slightly, "they showed real talent. Raw, yes, but with genuine emotional depth. The way you used color to convey isolation. That piece with the blue figure against the fragmented background, it spoke to me." "Really?" Mira's voice cracked slightly. "You actually looked at them?" "I studied them. And I'd like to offer you something." She pulled a folder from the side table. "I'm curating a new exhibition for the fall, emerging artists whose work deserves serious attention. I need someone to help me coordinate, someone who understands art from the inside. The position pays well, includes studio space, and would give you access to connections throughout the art community." Mira stared at the papers Celeste slid across to her. "I don't have experience in curation. I work in a bookstore." "You have eyes that see truth in art, and you have your own practice. That's more valuable than a resume." Celeste's expression grew serious. "I'm not offering this out of pity, Mira. I don't do pity. I'm offering it because I see something in you that deserves cultivation. But I need you to see it too." Tears pricked her eyes, but these felt different from last night's. These felt like relief. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Celeste was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. "Because 7 years ago, I was standing outside a different gallery, crying over someone who just told me I'd never amount to anything without my family name. A stranger, an older woman, an artist, stopped and told me that cruelty says everything about the person delivering it and nothing about the person receiving it. She gave me her card, we became friends, and she mentored me until she passed last year. Celeste's eyes glistened slightly. I promised her I'd pay it forward when I recognized that same lost look in someone else's eyes. Last night, I saw it in yours. Mira wiped at her cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say you'll consider it. Come by the gallery tomorrow, see the space, meet the team. No pressure. Celeste smiled. And Mira, that man last night, he's already texting mutual friends trying to control the narrative about your breakup. He's afraid. Afraid of what? That you'll realize you never needed him to give you permission to be extraordinary. They talked for 2 more hours. The conversation flowed from art to books to the small moments that shape a life. When Mira finally left, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades she immediately wanted to capture. Celeste walked her to the gate, and as they said goodbye, she touched Mira's shoulder gently. "You're going to be magnificent," she said simply. Mira walked home feeling something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Meanwhile, across the city, Damien scrolled through his phone with growing unease. 3 of his colleagues from last night had declined his lunch invitation. Someone had posted a vague status about respecting partners' dreams, which felt pointed, and Mira hadn't called or texted once. He told himself she was playing hard to get, that she'd crack soon enough. But a small, uncomfortable feeling was beginning to root in his chest, the suspicion that he'd made a terrible mistake.
When he came back. The knock on Mira's apartment door came on a Saturday morning, insistent and familiar. She'd been painting in the corner she'd converted into a makeshift studio, still in her sleep shirt and old jeans, hair piled messily on her head. Music played softly from her phone, something Celeste had introduced her to, a French singer whose voice felt like silk. Through the peephole, she saw Damien. Her stomach dropped, but not with the old anxiety. This felt different, annoyance, mixed with a strange detachment, as if looking at a character from a book she'd finished reading months ago. She opened the door, but didn't step aside to let him in. "Mira." He said her name like a sigh of relief, holding an enormous bouquet of roses, the expensive kind, at least 50 stems. "Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I know." His smile faltered slightly. "Can I come in? We need to talk." "We really don't." "Please." His voice took on the pleading tone she'd once found impossible to resist. "Just hear me out. 5 minutes." Against her better judgment, Mira stepped back and let him enter. He moved into her small living space with the assurance of someone who'd been there countless times before, setting the roses on her kitchen counter like an offering. "The place looks different," he observed, and it did. She'd painted one wall deep blue, hung her own artwork alongside prints Celeste had given her, replaced his old furniture that he'd left behind with pieces from thrift stores that actually felt like hers. "What do you want, Damien?" He turned to face her, and she saw he'd prepared for this, dressed in the shirt she'd once said she liked, hair styled carefully, expression arranged into contrition. "I want to apologize. What I said at the gallery, how I treated you, I was an ass. I was stressed about work, and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair." "You're right. It wasn't." He stepped closer, encouraged by her agreement. "I've been miserable without you, Mira. These past 2 months have made me realize what I had, what we had. I know I didn't always show it, but I love you. I want to make this right." There was a time when these words would have melted her resolve, when she would have convinced herself that love meant accepting someone's worst behavior because their apology sounded sincere enough. But that time felt like a different lifetime. "You don't love me, Damien." His face registered shock. "What? Of course I do. Why else would I be here?" "You love the idea of me, the version that made you feel important by being smaller than you, less ambitious, easier to manage." Mira crossed her arms, grounding herself in the truth she'd discovered. "You loved having someone who'd rearrange her life around yours, who'd accept your criticism as care, who'd be grateful for whatever scraps of respect you threw her way. That's not true. I supported you. You tolerated me, Mira interrupted, her voice steady. There's a difference. You tolerated my painting as long as I treated it like a hobby. You tolerated my dreams as long as I didn't actually pursue them. The moment I had a chance to be taken seriously as an artist, you laughed at me in front of strangers. His jaw tightened. I made one mistake. No, you made 1,000 small mistakes, and I forgave every one because I'd convinced myself that was what love looked like. That night at the gallery was just the first time you were honest in public about how you really saw me. So that's it? His tone shifted, hurt giving way to anger. 4 years, and you won't even give me a chance to fix this? There's nothing to fix. We're done, Damien. We've been done since the night I walked away. He stared at her, and she watched him cycle through emotions, confusion, anger, disbelief. Then his eyes narrowed. This is about her, isn't it? That Armand woman? I heard you've been working for her, that you two are always together. This is about me, Mira said firmly. It's about me finally understanding that I deserve better than what you offered. Better? He laughed, but it sounded desperate. She's using you, Mira. People like that don't care about people like us. You're a project to her, something to show off at her fancy parties. Look at the poor artist I rescued. Once she gets bored, you'll be back to your bookstore, except now you'll have gotten a taste of that world and it'll hurt even more. The cruelty in his words was familiar, but the effect had changed. Instead of doubting herself, Mira felt only pity for him. You need to leave now. Mira! Get out, Damien. Before he could respond, there was another knock at the door. Mira opened it to find Celeste standing there, holding a bag of pastries and wearing a sundress that made Mira's heart skip despite the tension in the room. Good morning. I brought breakfast and... Celeste stopped, seeing Damien. Her expression cooled immediately. I'm interrupting? No, Mira said, reaching for her hand and pulling her inside. Damien was just leaving. Damien stared at their joined hands, and Mira watched realization dawn across his face. Not just that Celeste was here, but how she was here. Comfortable, expected, intimate in a way that spoke of many mornings, many shared moments. You're together, he said flatly. Yes, Mira answered, no hesitation. Celeste's grip on Mira's hand tightened slightly, protective. She met Damien's gaze with cool assessment. You must be Damien. I've heard about you. I'm sure you have. His voice dripped with bitterness. Did she tell you she's only with you because you have money? That without your connections, your galleries, your name, she wouldn't look twice at you? Stop, Mira said sharply, but Celeste squeezed her hand. Actually, Celeste said calmly, Mira didn't tell me much about you. She didn't need to. I saw exactly who you were that night at the gallery when you tried to humiliate someone you claimed to love. People who do that reveal far more about their own insecurities than about the people they're trying to diminish. Damien's face flushed. You don't know anything about us, about what we had. I know she's thriving now, Celeste continued, her voice never rising but carrying absolute conviction. I know her work is exceptional and getting recognition from people who actually understand art. I know she's confident, happy, and surrounded by people who see her value. And I know that terrifies you because you built your entire relationship on making sure she never realized how extraordinary she is. The silence that followed felt heavy. Damien looked between them, searching for some weakness to exploit, some crack to wedge himself into. He found none. You'll regret this, he said finally, directing it at Mira. Both of you. No, Mira said softly. I won't. The only thing I regret is not walking away sooner. After he left, slamming the door behind him, Mira released a shaking breath. Celeste immediately pulled her into an embrace, and Mira let herself sink into it. Are you okay? Celeste murmured against her hair. Yeah. Actually, I really am. He has no power over me anymore. Good. Celeste kissed her forehead gently, though I have to admit I wanted to say much worse things to him. You were magnificent, Mira laughed, the tension finally breaking. terrifying and magnificent. He deserved terrifying. Celeste cupped her face in both hands. No one gets to talk to you like that, especially not in your own home. My hero, Mira teased, but her eyes were serious. Thank you for being here. Always, Celeste promised, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like new beginnings. Damien made it to his car before the shaking started. He gripped the steering wheel, staring at Mira's building, replaying the scene in his mind. The way she'd stood up to him without flinching. The way she looked at that woman, with respect, with affection, with something that looked like terrifyingly real love. He'd lost her. Not just lost her, but lost her to someone who made his own accomplishments look small, who treated Mira like she was precious in a way that he'd never thought to do. For the first time, Damien understood that this wasn't a breakup he could fix with flowers and apologies. This was a door closed permanently, locked from the inside by someone who'd finally learned she deserved better. He drove away, but the feeling of loss followed him, like a shadow.
The breaking point. The gallery hummed with polite conversation and the soft clink of champagne glasses. Mira stood beside her 3 paintings, hung in the emerging artists section, her stomach knotted with nervous hope. She'd spent months preparing for this moment, working late into the night after her day job at the bookstore, pouring everything she felt but couldn't say into brushstrokes and color. Damien arrived late, as usual, his cologne announcing him before his voice did. He barely glanced at her work before turning to the small crowd that had gathered, his colleagues from the finance firm, people whose opinions he valued far more than hers. "So, these are Mira's little projects," he said, his tone dripping with condescension masked as affection. "She's been playing with paints for years now. It's cute." Mira's chest tightened. This wasn't new. For 4 years, Damien had perfected the art of diminishing her while smiling. But tonight, in front of strangers who might have seen something real in her work, the humiliation cut deeper. "They're not projects," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the ambient music. "They're pieces I've been developing for—" "Developing?" Damien laughed, gesturing to his friends. "She talks like she's a real artist. Mira, sweetheart, these are nice for a hobby, but let's not pretend this is a career. You work in a bookstore." The words landed like stones. One of his colleagues smirked. Another looked away, embarrassed for her. Mira felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart breaking, but something harder. Her tolerance. Her willingness to shrink herself for his comfort. "I'm leaving," she said simply. Damien's eyebrows rose in theatrical surprise. "What? Because I'm being honest? God, you're so sensitive." "No," Mira said, meeting his eyes with a clarity that surprised even herself. "I'm leaving you. Completely." For a moment, genuine confusion crossed his face. Then, as if realizing they had an audience, he laughed, a loud, performative sound that echoed off the gallery walls. "You're leaving me?" He turned to his friends, gesturing broadly. "Did everyone hear that? She's leaving me. 4 years. And now she's got some pride because she hung 3 paintings in a community gallery?" His voice dripped with mockery. "Good luck out there, Mira. You'll realize soon enough what you had." Mira didn't respond. She simply turned and walked toward the exit, her vision blurring, but her steps steady. She wouldn't run. She refused to give him that satisfaction. Behind her, she heard his voice continue, playing to the crowd. "She'll be back by tomorrow. They always come back." The cool evening air hit her face as she pushed through the gallery doors. The street was quieter here, away from the main entrance. Mira leaned against the brick wall, letting out a shaken breath. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't give him that either. "Are you all right?" The voice was soft, concerned,
distinctly feminine. Mira looked up to find a woman standing a few feet away, elegant in a way that seemed effortless. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than Mira's rent, her dark hair falling in waves over her shoulders, but it was her eyes that caught Mira. Warm, intelligent, genuinely worried. "I'm fine," Mira lied, wiping quickly at her face. The woman stepped closer, and Mira recognized her suddenly. Celeste Armand. Her face had been in the arts section of newspapers, in magazine features about young philanthropists and cultural preservation. She was the reason tonight's exhibition was even happening. Her foundation funded emerging artists. "You're not," Celeste said gently. "I was inside. I saw what happened." Mira's embarrassment flared fresh and hot. "Then you saw me make a scene. I'm sorry, I should go." "He made the scene," Celeste interrupted firmly. "You showed remarkable dignity." Something about the certainty in her voice made Mira's composure finally crack. A sob escaped before she could stop it, and suddenly Celeste stepped forward and wrapped her arms around her. The stranger, this woman whose world seemed galaxies away from Mira's own. The hug was warm, steady, and completely unexpected. Celeste held her like she mattered, like her pain was worth acknowledging. Mira let herself lean into it, just for a moment, breathing in the scent of jasmine perfume and feeling, for the first time in years, genuinely safe. "You deserved better than that," Celeste whispered. "Your work deserved better than that." When they finally pulled apart, Mira saw something in Celeste's expression that looked like recognition, as if she had once stood exactly where Mira stood now. "Thank you," Mira managed. Celeste smiled softly and reached into her small clutch, pulling out a card. "Come see me tomorrow, please. I have something I'd like to discuss with you." Mira took the card with trembling fingers, reading the embossed address. Before she could respond, Celeste squeezed her hand once and disappeared back toward the gallery entrance. Mira stood alone on the quiet street, holding the card, feeling the ghost of that embrace still warming her shoulders. Inside the gallery, Damien was probably still holding court, celebrating his victory. But for the first time in 4 years, Mira didn't feel defeated. She felt like something had just begun.
Grace in bloom. 6 months later, autumn painted the city in shades of amber and rust. The Armand Gallery's newest exhibition space was packed with collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts, all gathered for the opening of Emerging Voices, a showcase of 10 artists whose work deserved serious attention. Mira stood near the entrance in a midnight blue dress Celeste had helped her pick out, greeting guests with a confidence that still surprised her sometimes. Her 3 paintings hung in the central gallery space, positioned where evening light would catch them perfectly. But tonight wasn't just about her work. It was about all 10 artists they'd chosen, each one representing a different vision, a unique voice. "You look nervous," Celeste whispered, appearing at her elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. She was stunning in a burgundy suit, her hair swept up, looking every inch the art world powerhouse she was. "I'm terrified," Mira admitted. "What if people hate it? What if we chose wrong?" "We didn't." Celeste's certainty was absolute. "And even if some people hate it, that means it provoked something. Art that everyone loves is usually art that says nothing." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been this wise. You're just now noticing." Celeste grinned, then leaned in closer. "Besides, I have it on good authority that the Tribune's art critic already wrote her review, and she used the word revelatory 3 times. You're making that up." "I never lie about good reviews." Before Mira could respond, the gallery director signaled that it was time for the opening remarks. Celeste took the small stage first, welcoming everyone and speaking about the exhibition's vision, giving platform to artists whose work challenged, questioned, and illuminated aspects of human experience that needed attention. Then she introduced Mira. "Our curator for this exhibition is someone who embodies the very spirit we're celebrating tonight. She understands what it means to persist in creative work despite obstacles, to develop a voice when others try to silence it, and to recognize authentic vision in others because she's fought for her own. Mira Chen has been instrumental in bringing this exhibition to life, and I'm honored to work alongside her. Mira? The applause was warm as Mira took the stage, her prepared notes suddenly feeling inadequate. She looked out at the crowd, familiar faces mixed with strangers, all genuinely interested in what she had to say. Near the back she spotted him, Damien. He stood apart from the main crowd, dressed formally, his expression unreadable. Their eyes met briefly and Mira felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just a distant recognition of someone who used to matter and no longer did. She began to speak and her voice came out steady. When I was younger, I thought being an artist meant suffering for your work, accepting that you'd never quite be good enough, that recognition was for other people, people with the right connections, the right background, the right everything. I was wrong. Being an artist means seeing the world in a way that's uniquely yours and having the courage to share that vision. It means surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your voice rather than trying to silence it. And it means understanding that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. Her eyes found Celeste in the front row, and she saw everything she felt reflected back at her. This exhibition exists because of someone who taught me that being seen is different from being understood, who showed me that real support doesn't come with conditions or criticism disguised as concern, who believed in these artists, including me, not because we fit some conventional mold of success, but because our work was honest and vital and necessary. Mira's voice softened. Celeste Armand didn't just give me a job. She gave me back my voice. And tonight, we're amplifying 10 more voices that deserve to be heard. Thank you all for being here to listen. The applause was thunderous. As Mira stepped down, Celeste was there immediately, pulling her into a brief, warm embrace. "That was perfect," she whispered. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations, introductions, and the particular energy that comes from a successful opening. Collectors placed holds on pieces. Critics took extensive notes. The artists themselves glowed with the validation of being taken seriously. Near the end of the evening, as the crowd thinned, Damien approached. Mira had been expecting it, and Celeste, sensing his approach, appeared at her side. "Mira," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Congratulations, this is impressive." "Thank you." An awkward pause stretched between them. Up close, Mira could see that he looked tired, older somehow. "He wanted to apologize for everything, for how I treated you, what I said that last time at your apartment. I was angry and hurt, but that's no excuse." "You're right. It's not. But I appreciate you saying it." "I've been thinking a lot about us, about what went wrong." "Damien," Mira interrupted gently, "I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you learn to see people's dreams as something to support rather than threaten. But that's not my concern anymore. I've moved on." His eyes flickered to Celeste, standing close enough to be clearly together, but quiet, letting Mira handle this herself. She's good for you," he said. "You seem happy." "I am happy. Genuinely happy, probably for the first time in years." Something in his expression cracked then. Real regret, real understanding of what he'd lost, and he didn't even know what he had until it was gone. "I should have treated you better. I see that now." "Yes, you should have." There was nothing more to say. Damien nodded once, looked like he might add something else, then simply turned and walked away. Mira watched him go, feeling only a quiet sense of closure. Celeste's hand found hers. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I really am. He's just part of my past now. Not a particularly good part, but also not one that defines me anymore." "Good." Celeste turned to face her fully. "Because I'd really like to focus on being your present, and, if you're amenable, your future." Mira's heart swelled. Amenable? Such a romantic word choice. "I'm trying to be sophisticated," Celeste laughed, pulling her closer. "What I mean is, I love you, Mira Chen.
I love your talent, your resilience, your kindness, even to people who don't deserve it. I love waking up next to you. I love watching you work. I love the way you see beauty in unexpected places. And I'd very much like to keep doing all of that for a very long time." "I love you too," Mira whispered, not caring that they were still in the gallery that people could see. "You saved me, that night outside the gallery." "No," Celeste corrected softly. "You saved yourself. I just held you steady while you found your footing." They kissed, gentle and sure, surrounded by art and possibility. When they pulled apart, Mira looked around the gallery, at her paintings on the wall, at the career she was building, at the woman she loved standing beside her. "Thank you," Mira said. "For what?" "For seeing me, really seeing me." Celeste's smile was radiant. "Always the easiest thing I've ever done. You're not hard to see, love. You're brilliant." They stayed until the last guest left, then walked through the empty gallery hand in hand, examining each piece one more time. Outside, the autumn night was crisp and clear. The city stretched out before them, full of promise. Damien drove home alone. The image of Mira and Celeste together burned into his mind. Not the jealousy he'd expected, but something worse. The clear understanding that Mira had found something real, something he'd never been capable of giving her. She had moved on completely, rebuilt herself into someone stronger and happier, and he'd had nothing to do with it except serving as the catalyst for her departure. He'd lost something extraordinary, and he hadn't even known what he had until it was gone. A year later, Mira's first solo exhibition opened to critical acclaim. Celeste stood beside her at the opening, not as mentor or patron, but as partner in every sense. They'd moved in together 6 months prior, their lives intertwining in ways that felt both exciting and comfortable. The paintings that lined the walls told stories of transformation, from darkness into light, from confinement into freedom, from silence into voice. Critics called it a stunning debut from an artist unafraid of emotional honesty. But Mira's favorite piece hung in their bedroom at home, never for sale. It showed 2 figures in embrace, surrounded by color and light, titled simply, Grace. Because that's what Celeste had given her, what they'd given each other. Grace to be imperfect, grace to grow, grace to love and be loved without conditions. And in that grace, Mira had finally bloomed.
When walls begin to fall. The cliff walk was treacherous in places. Narrow paths where earth met air with nothing but determination holding them together. Maya had walked it dozens of times alone, finding comfort in the wildness of it. With Celeste beside her, it felt different, more vivid somehow, as if the other woman's presence sharpened the edges of the world. They walked in comfortable silence initially, the ocean crashing far below, gulls wheeling overhead. Celeste moved with surprising confidence over the uneven terrain despite her city polish. "I looked you up," Celeste said eventually. Maya's step faltered. Of course she had. Anyone would. "I read what they said about you," Celeste continued. "The accusations. I also read your interviews from before. The early ones, when you still trusted journalists." She stopped walking, turning to face Maya directly. "Those are 2 different people. The one you were, and the one they tried to make you." "How do you know which was real?" Maya's voice came out brittle. "Because I'm looking at you now. Because I've spent 3 weeks learning how you think, what makes you laugh, the way you consider things before speaking. That person doesn't match their narrative." Maya wrapped herself around herself. "It doesn't matter. The story they told is the one everyone believes." "I don't." 2 words, simple and absolute. Something cracked in Maya's chest. "You don't even know me." "Then let me." Celeste moved closer, close enough that Maya could see gold flecks in her dark eyes. "Let me know you. Not the singer who vanished, not the villain from tabloids. You. Why?" The question came out raw. "Why do you care?" Celeste's hand came up slowly, giving Maya time to retreat. When she didn't, Celeste's fingers brushed her cheek with devastating gentleness. Because when I walked into that bookshop, I was exhausted from being Celeste Moreau, the entrepreneur, the innovator, the woman who solved everyone's problems. I'd forgotten how to be just a person. Her thumb traced Maya's cheekbone. And then you hummed those few notes and something in me recognized something in you, like calling to like. Maya's breath shuddered out. I'm broken. You're healing. There's a difference. The wind picked up, carrying salt spray and the promise of another storm. Maya leaned into Celeste's touch without deciding to, her body making choices her mind was still afraid of. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. This? Trust. Be close to someone. Risk anything. Celeste's other hand found Maya's waist, steadying rather than claiming. We don't have to rush. We don't have to define anything. We can just be. Here. Now. And later? Later will take care of itself. Maya studied the woman before her, elegant and powerful, and somehow vulnerable in this moment. She thought about the past 3 weeks, how Celeste had appeared daily without pressure, without expectation, how she had brought coffee and conversation and quiet understanding, how she had made Maya want to try again. I'm afraid, Maya whispered. I know. I am too. She leaned closer, her forehead coming to rest against Maya's. They stood like that as the sky darkened, breathing the same air, existing in the same space without demand or performance. Just two people finding unexpected shelter in each other. When the first raindrops fell, they walked back unhurried, their hands finding each other naturally on the path. At Maya's small rental cottage, a tiny place overlooking the bay, they hesitated at the door. Would you like to come in? Maya heard herself ask. Celeste's answer was soft. Very much. Inside, Maya made tea while Celeste examined her space. It was sparse. Maya had left most of her life behind. But there were books everywhere, and shells collected from beach walks, and a window seat where she had spent countless hours watching the ocean. It suits you, Celeste said, accepting the mug Maya offered. Peaceful, but not empty. They sat on the window seat together, watching rain stipple the bay. Maya found herself talking, really talking for the first time in months, about growing up in a small apartment where music was the only luxury, about her first performance at 16, terrified and exhilarated, about the slow build of her career, the joy of connecting with audiences, and then about Damien, how love had blinded her, how betrayal had shattered her. Celeste listened without interruption, her hand warm where it rested on Maya's knee. When Maya's voice finally broke, she simply pulled her close, letting her curl into her shoulder. He didn't deserve you, she murmured into her hair. Not your voice, not your heart, not any of it. Maya breathed in the scent of Celeste's perfume, something subtle and expensive that made her think of moonlight on water. I don't know if I can ever sing again, even if I wanted to. Then don't. Or do. But make it your choice, not his legacy. They stayed like that as the storm intensified outside, holding each other in the safety of Maya's quiet refuge. When Celeste finally pulled back, her eyes were impossibly tender. Thank you, she said, for trusting me with your truth. Maya's hand came up to cup Celeste's face. Thank you for wanting to know it. The kiss was inevitable and impossible to predict. Soft at first, tentative, a question neither had planned to ask. Then deeper as Maya's fingers threaded into Celeste's hair and Celeste's arms tightened around her waist. It tasted like rain and trust and the terrifying possibility of beginning again. When they finally separated, both breathless, Celeste touched her forehead to Maya's once more. Stay with me, Maya whispered. Tonight. Just stay. Celeste's smile was answer enough. They moved to Maya's small bedroom, shedding armor and pretense together. That night, They learned each other with patient hands and whispered discoveries, creating something fragile and fierce in the darkness. For the first time in a year, Maya felt like she might survive after all.